Dadgummit, I keep doing that.
Okay, so welcome to 2.5 Opinions, Dadgummit.
Well, no, I get carried up in the song and then it stops. I'm like, oh man. Bring back the music. Bring back the music. So, our views are not necessarily the views or opinions of ourselves, but they may be the views and opinions of others. I hope you guys can accept that.
Views and opinions of views and opinions are views and opinions. That's all I'm hearing right now. You keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means. Come on. Come on.
Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die. Stop saying that.
No. Now, because you said it, I have to do it. Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You read my Torah. Prepare to study.
Oh, hey, that's pretty good. I like that. I like that. So, all right, if you haven't figured out, as Chris introduced, we're 2.5 Opinions. I think there's more like 7 different personalities wandering around the stage right now, but oh well. Chris, are you there? Are you being observed?
So I'm broadcasting remotely from beautiful Red River, New Mexico, where yesterday and today it was clear skies. I think we had a high of like 40 degrees today. It's unusually warm for 8,800 feet above sea level in the mountains of northern New Mexico. The ski slope is right outside my window here. In fact, we got a porch and looking out straight at the main run, and they just shut down the lifts, so people are finishing up the day of skiing, and it's gorgeous here. I'm ready to live here.
So how close are you to Roswell? You know, seen any aliens?
That's way down on the other side of the state. We're way up in the north side, and Roswell is way down in the southeast corner. In fact, my brother was born in Roswell, and yes, he hates it because he's heard the jokes his entire life.
Yeah, but New Mexico's full of aliens, isn't it?
Remember, born there, he is an alien.
Yeah, it is full of aliens because there's a lot of Hollywood out here now.
So
wait, if I'm not mistaken,
there certainly are parts of New Mexico that they call Nuevo Hollywood.
Yeah. So if you're not mistaken, Jesse, what?
If I'm not mistaken, that's Doug, is it not?
No, Brett and I were both born in New Mexico, and Doug was born in Denver.
So you're an alien too.
Who?
You knew that was coming.
You said you were born in New Mexico.
Alien? Because I am not. I'm neither a sojourner nor an alien. I am a homeboy.
Oh, okay.
He was born in New Mexico, but not in Roswell, unlike his brother. So the one in Roswell is the alien.
Oh, okay.
So all of these alien things, they've got what to do with our Torah portion?
Exactly.
Because you and the sojourner, the alien, get instructions on Pesach. Do you know?
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I can turn anything into Torah.
So with Pesach, because this is the Torah portion, Bo is the Torah portion where we have, there's a couple of strange things. One, it seems like all the plagues, even though no place is it referenced as 10 plagues, right. It's God says they're going to be signs, they're going to be wonders with an outstretched arm, and with judgments, he's going to bring us out of Egypt. And the sole purpose of these signs, wonders, and judgments is so that all of Egypt and Pharaoh will know that he is God, or the Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh, and so all of Israel will know that he is Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. So that's the purpose of these signs, wonders, these plagues. We enumerate them because we counted them ourselves because we are smart. MOON, that spells plague. So, yeah, I don't know if anybody read or saw the movie The Stand by Stephen King, but that was a famous line from there. Anyway, so
oh geez,
yeah, so we're smart enough we count them off, and there's 10 of them here. 10. I give it a 10.
10.
Yeah, so we've got 10. It's a perfect number. It sounds great. And 10 plagues, 10 commandments. There's got to be something super fragilistic, califragic, whatever.
Super
with that. But
what
we have is the last Torah portion explicitly, but we have a great, almost chronological, smooth flow of events. Moses meets Pharaoh at the water and changes the water or introduces a new plague, a new sign to Pharaoh, and he'll do that with the first two, and then with the third one he doesn't even say anything, and then he'll come back and start all over again, and he does this 3 different times. So we've got like 3 sets of 3s, and now with this last one, is this last one a plague? Is it a judgment? What is it? What's even crazier is we go through 7 of these signs, nice and smooth, no interruption, no break, everything's going great. Now all of a sudden with these last 3, we have multiple interruptions. It's almost like meanwhile back in the barn, or oh yeah, I forgot to tell you about this. We get interruptions, and it doesn't flow as smoothly as the first 7 plagues. And then we get to the highlight, which is the Pesach, the Passover. And so my
what
question,
are you saying? Are you saying that it's not necessarily chronological, but it's topical?
Well, I think the whole Torah, all Torah is topical, not necessarily chronological. That does not mean there is not or an absence of chronology in certain events. I think that the events of the plagues or the signs and wonders, I think they happened one after another as we're told. In other words, they were presented chronologically in a chronological order.
Right.
First was the river, and then frogs, and etc. But there's something strange going on with these last 3, and specifically with Pesach itself, because from Christianity we think that the Pesach in Egypt was a sacrifice. From Christianity, we think that this was the Passover, that death passed over us, that all of Israel was saved because of this sacrifice, the Paschal Lamb, and that's why Jesus is the Lamb of God, because after all, John the Baptist said, look, behold, the Lamb of God who takes away all sin. So he must be talking about the Passover Lamb, and yet whenever we read the story and we slow down and we separate a lot of these teachings as we read the story, we find out this is not a sacrifice.
I got a question.
This is something different. Something odd is going on here.
Yeah, I got a question.
Okay.
Why is Jesus thought of only as a lamb when, in this portion, it specifically tells you can have either a lamb or a goat?
I don't know. Somehow Christians came up with the idea that goats were bad and lambs were good because Jesus is going to separate the lambs from the goats, and somehow they think the goats are bad, and
goats not bad.
It just comes from not reading and not studying the text itself. It's an interjection of stories and things that make us feel good, as opposed to what is the Torah trying to teach me.
I just want my ears tickled.
Yeah. We all do. I still think that the Broncos are going to be in the Super Bowl tomorrow.
Oh, okay. How many beers have you had?
Yeah.
What?
I've got faith, baby. I sent in my seed faith money. I mean, I'm still. I got faith. I'm holding out. No, I'm just joking. But at least the AFC is represented in the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
they can't knock us out completely.
Yeah, you told. Yeah, that's not going to happen. There's always going to be an AFC presence. Oh goodness!
See, my faith made it true.
Oh, okay, all right.
Because that's the way the system is designed. That's what we're laughing and joking about.
Yeah.
But yeah, so this Passover is different from all other Passovers. Everything that goes on this night is different, but it also seems to be the predicate of so many other things to come. And and hopefully we can get into that if we don't belabor our introduction too much longer.
Good luck with that one.
Yeah, saw some interesting things. I've always thought, and again, it's one of those things where I just read through it too fast, and a couple of years ago I recognized and saw this, that, oh, wait a minute, Goshen was not free from all the plagues. Goshen was affected by at least one.
Supposedly the first three, I think, because the divide. I can't speak. So because the dividing action, it says that in Goshen no one was affected. That's the first time it's listed. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was the first three that affected everybody, and everything after that was only the Egyptians.
And that's possible. Now, there's hints in the text that Goshen was not affected by all the plagues, but there's one plague specifically that you have to say, no, this does include Goshen. All the others, now, with darkness, we know that the darkness did not affect Goshen. With at least three of the plagues, or one set of three plagues, we are told specifically that Goshen was excluded from these three. We can assume that Goshen was excluded from all of them, but the text gives us specific words here that says, no, this one had to have included Goshen. Which one was it? We'll get into that.
Okay. So have you decided, Jesse, Chris, what we're going to read, where we're going to start?
I do believe we were going to open with the pages of explaining the opening portions of Pesach.
Chris, what was that? Chapter 12?
Yeah, it should be chapter 12. Probably we can really do like 1 through verse 14 or 15. Let's not make it too long, but that kind of covers everything that's going on here.
Okay.
What do you think, Jesse? 14?
That'll work.
15?
You know, the comedy about
16, it just keeps on going as you read through.
You know,
the comedy of what?
The comedy about stopping at 14 is what has been the biggest debate about Pesach between multiple people.
Oh, yeah, especially in the Messianic realm. Is it the 14th or 15th? What is yeah, I know. There's controversy over controversies. Is that a controversy? No, it's not a controversy. Yes, it is a controversy. And,
it made me laugh because you said
I'll give you Mark's line, Torah or not Torah.
Yeah, that's a tough one sometimes. All right, so let's start off 1 through. Let's just go ahead and go through.
Okay, and then we're going to line out, our basic thoughts, and then we'll explore from there. So, you guys ready? Jesse, Chris,
hit it.
Okay. Jesse,
play that bass beat.
Ay. Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bakar banu mikol ha'amim v'tan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah el melech ne'eman.
Amen. Exodus chapter 12, verse 1 through 14. And the Lord spoke to Moses and to Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, This month shall be to you the head of the months. To you it shall be the first of the months for the year. Speak to the entire community of Israel, saying, On the 10th of this month, let each one take a lamb for each parental home, a lamb for each household. But if the household is too small for a lamb, then he and his neighbor who is nearest to his house shall take one according to the number of people, each according to one's ability to eat. You shall be counted for the lamb. You shall have a perfect male lamb in its first year. You may take it either from the sheep or from the goats, and you shall keep it for inspection until the 14th day of this month. And the entire congregation of the community of Israel shall slaughter it in the afternoon. And they shall take some of the blood and put it on the 2 doorposts and on the lintel, on the houses in which they will eat it. And on this night they shall eat the flesh, roasted over the fire, and unleavened cakes with bitter herbs they shall eat it. You shall not eat it rare or boiled in water, except roasted over the fire, its head with its legs and with its innards. And you shall not leave over any of it until morning, and whatever is left over of it until morning you shall burn in fire. And this is how you shall eat it: your loins girded, your shoes on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and you shall eat it in haste. It is a Passover sacrifice to the Lord. I will pass through the land of Egypt on this night, and I will smite every firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and upon all the gods of Egypt I will wreak judgments, I, the Lord. And the blood will be for you for a sign upon the houses where you will be, and I will see the blood and skip over you, and there will be no plague to destroy you when I smite the people of the land of Egypt. And this day shall be for you as a memorial, and you shall celebrate it as a festival to the Lord throughout your generations. You shall celebrate it as an everlasting statute.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet b'kayei olam nota b'tukenu Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah HaMelech Ne'eman. So, I kind of heard a squeaky going off in the background, and it started to make me think of the Marx Brothers, Harpo going.
Well, let's see. We have a four-legged gray mass of patheticness that is whining and moping for seeing his mama all over again.
Poor widow Totok. Oh well. So, where are we going to line out? Where we're going to go? Because this portion is the defining information on Pesach, correct? No? Yes? Chris?
Uh-oh. Yep.
Yeah, I was about to say.
I'm like, we lost Chris.
Yeah, a mountain passed by and it blocked the transmission. So,
what are you drinking?
I really, yeah. This is the. How did you put that? The defining
moment or instruction of Pesach.
Yeah, except if you actually read the Torah portion all the way through, you'd see that we've got like multiple instructions on Pesach, and which one applies only to the first event of Passover, and which applies to every event to come after that. And then we're going to get to Deuteronomy, and we're going to see more detail. And with Leviticus, a little bit more detail with, okay, what you experienced there in Egypt, that was Pesach, yes, but from here on out, Pesach's going to be this way. So, I don't know, maybe God changed his mind and changed the law on the fly.
Nope.
No?
Simply because you cannot leave Egypt again once you've left it. You can't recreate. If it were going to be that way, he would have told us, okay, you go down to Egypt every year at this time and then reenact the whole thing over again. And I'll kill the next firstborn of Egypt again and again and again.
So you say I have to be born again? Does that mean I have to enter into my mother's womb a second time? I mean, that's got to be one of the dumbest questions I ever read in the Bible. And that's, the guy talking to Jesus, and Jesus says you got to be born again. And he's, well, how do I enter into my mother's womb a second time? Even when I was a Christian, I was kind of like appalled that they actually recorded that. It's like, Really? Are you that? What? I mean, so
or was the question set up to make him answer specifically?
Yeah, exactly. Who knows? The one thing about this, though, is that we're given specific instructions to the people there, and then it almost as if while we're going through that night itself, if we read this as though this is a unbroken chain of events, all of a sudden in the middle of it, we're given instructions for the future.
Right.
And so the instructions for the future do not necessarily apply for the instructions for that night, because we're told specifically, now this is a statute for the future, and it says statute. It didn't say statute or a hulk for that night. And what's even more striking is that when we get on to the rest of the Torah, not just this portion, but the rest of the Torah, it's called a Korban Pesach, the Pesach sacrifice.
Right.
But here
it is a remembrance.
But here it's never referred to as a sacrifice. Your English Bibles will say sacrifice because it seems to fit. It kind of fits the context. This is a sacrifice, but nowhere does it tell us what we're sacrificing for.
Chris, are you saying we're at the mercy of the translator?
Yes, but it's troublesome because whenever you read it in Hebrew, yes, that word for slaughter can be used for slaughtering for a sacrifice.
Yes.
But it can also be used for slaughtering of your enemies, slaughtering of the innocents, slaughtering of this and slaughtering of that. Anytime you kill somebody, this word can be used. And it can be used for killing an animal that is going to be a sacrifice, or that animal that has been set aside as a sacrifice. It can be used there. The problem is we have more specific terms, and Korban is one of those when we're dealing with a sacrifice or a specific sacrifice, and that word is not used here. We accept that this first one was a sacrifice, but my question is, why do we accept it as a sacrifice? Just because we killed an animal because God told us to?
Well,
But did we not kill any other animals to eat?
oh, of course.
So we can kill another animal and deal with it as God will instruct us in Deuteronomy by pouring out its blood and burying its blood and treating the animal with respect,
right,
and killing it in a proper way. But that's not called a sacrifice. It's called a slaughter. Here we're going to call this a sacrifice. It's just one of those things where, welcome to 2.5 Opinion, folks, where Chris gets some crazy ideas. And I've been told by a couple of people, that's just too deep for me. It's just too deep. I don't want to think
Give
that
me
hard.
the Cliff Notes.
Yeah, you guys go into the weeds. I can't even deal with keeping Sabbath. I don't want to go into the weeds on it.
Your Honor, Jesse, Your Honor.
Yes.
I would like to submit that on a prior program, on a different program, that the defendant, Mr. Matthews over here, submitted that actually the entire house where the blood was applied to the doorposts and lintels became an altar. So I would like to submit that as evidence 1A.
Yes, but we have to go back, because we're not told of an altar, but yet from this side of Sinai, we always, especially Messianics, we go back and we say, you've got to have an altar to have a sacrifice. Hence, there's no sacrifices happening today. Judaism backs this up. They say without the temple and without the altar, we cannot have sacrifices. And there's all kinds of reasons why there's no sacrifices today. But this is a fun thing.
I set the Wayback Machine so we can go back.
Oh, okay. But this is a fun thing, because even Talmud does not forbid you from sacrificing a Pesach today. Right. Even the rabbis won't weigh in on it.
Mm.
And there's a interesting reason for it. I don't think we'll have time to get into it tonight. But if you're going to do it, you need to do it properly. It doesn't mean just go out there and grab a goat or a lamb out of the flock, kill it, and roast it your own way because, it's nice, touchy feeling, emotionally driven. No, God still had rules. Just don't forget Aaron's 2 sons. Personally, I think they got a little bit emotionally tied up in the event.
Unauthorized fire, yeah.
And they did something that was not authorized, and they were killed for it. It's both a blessing and a curse in their case, but nonetheless. But
Chris, we're carnivores. We go out and we eat meat. Except for those people who are vegetarians, and we don't like them, but
well, because they're long-haired hippie freaks, and yeah. So here we have we know what is required for sacrifice. What's required? We've got to have an altar. We've got to have a priesthood. We've got there's with all the sacrifices that we can list out of Vayikra or Leviticus. We know that there's certain sacrifices for one thing, there's certain sacrifices for other things, and there's certain sacrifices for other things.
Right.
We've got the olah, the whole burnt offering, and there's a category of things that a whole burnt offering is offered for. We also have a todah, the korban todah, which is a thanksgiving offering, and it's actually listed in the Psalms of all places as to the events that you bring a thanksgiving offering for.
Right.
And then we have a free will offering. Whatever moves you and you want to bring an offering to the Lord, then this is how these are done. What's interesting about the Passover, the first Passover, is we have nothing here that tells us, is this a sacrifice for sin? Is this a Thanksgiving sacrifice? Is this a free will sacrifice? Is this a whole burnt? No, it's not a whole burnt because we get to eat of it. Where's
Right.
the priest? Where's the altar? What I mean, there's nothing here that tells us to sacrifice, but there's certain things that are done within this this that is tied to both the olah and the free will. I mean, the todah, the Thanksgiving sacrifice, and that is one. There's something done with the blood that is special.
Yes.
The blood of any sacrifice is applied to the horns of the altar, or it's going to be sprinkled. I'm not being trite here. I'm just saying there's a spritzing aspect, a sprinkling with your fingers. I'm flicking my fingers as I'm saying this. You sprinkle the blood towards the most holy place, towards the Ark of the Covenant. You apply the blood to the horns of the altar of the incense, and apply the blood to the altar of the main altar, etc.
Right,
Or the blood is poured out on the north side, or there's specific instructions for blood. So we have specific instructions for blood on this one. Okay, there's a correlation there, but it's not the horns of the altar. We apply the blood to the lintel and the doorposts of the door of the house. That's weird. 2, the offering must be eaten in a holy place, either by the priest or by the priest and the individual bringing it, depending on which offering this is, or your offering is burnt whole and nobody gets it. But it's always an offering to God. And nowhere within this first one do we see that this is offered to God in any aspect.
Well,
so
I could
how
submit,
do we deal with some of this?
I could submit some thoughts on this. First of all, the mate or the patriarch of the house is considered the priest of the house, correct?
Yes, in ancient times, the firstborn was always considered a priest, and specifically in Egypt.
Right.
Egypt is where we're going to have this battle of the firstborns, and that's what this night is about.
Right. So the blood is applied to the doorpost and lintel. Okay. In other words, essentially the horns of the altar.
But the altar is what you burn the sacrifice on. We're not burning the sacrifice on the door.
No, but you're burning it in a holy place, which is the house, once you sacrifice or sanctified it.
How is it sanctified?
The application of the blood on the doorpost and lintel, in effect, this is Frank's opinion now, okay? In effect, sanctifies the house because you're eating the Pesach. You are following the instructions of the Most High. You have the firstborn, who is the priest of the house, and you're eating it, with your loins girded, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand, ready to move out. And
that's another thing. What other sacrifice do you present in that fashion? None.
Well, yeah, right. Plus, it's cooked, everything all together in fire. And if you leave anything over in the morning, it's burned up completely. And as you pointed out earlier this is our pre-discussion, folks, that certain sacrifices you can eat of it up until the third day, and after that it's unacceptable, or it's wrong. It's a bad sacrifice if you don't do that, if you don't burn everything else up. As you said earlier, some sacrifices are a complete burned offering. Must be burned up completely. So, in effect, each of the houses that that are drawing together for this first Pesach. They are multiple altars in the land of Goshen, or wherever they were at in Egypt. Excuse me, because not all Israelites were in Goshen.
But it is strange that there's no reference to an altar. We have to make that assumption or draw that out of the text based on correlation with sacrifices, because we truly are. We're striving to make this a sacrifice. It's not called a sacrifice. It's not called an offering. In fact, you can share this with others. If you can't afford, don't have a lamb or a goat, then join another family that has one or has enough for you. Right. So you're going to be joined together. So that's a little bit different than me bringing a sin sacrifice or a free will offering or a Thanksgiving offering. It's
right, but it is different. A protection, if you will, for the firstborn occupants of the house, because after all, the curse or the destroyer was going to go out and destroy all of the firstborn. And as Jesse pointed out, it's not just the people, it's the firstborn of the flocks and the herds also.
Yeah, well, I think if you're going to jump on that one, it would take us off on a different tangent of who we're truly pointing at when we say destroying all of the firstborn. So let's save that one for in a bit.
Oh, it's all right. Okay. I think we can go ahead and wrap that one up, because that is kind of part of this. Is maybe this is a sacrifice for the firstborn, but notice there's no sin involved with this.
Right.
It's not because I sinned. It's not because of anything God has done for me yet. It's really anticipation for what God is going to do for me. He is going to protect me from death, but the thirdborn. What about the 12th son sitting over there? But really, what's the big deal with him? Why not just send my firstborn next door? If I can't afford a lamb for myself, and the family next door, they've got a firstborn in there, and at least he's got one lamb. He can't feed all of us, so why not just send the firstborn over there? Because after all, this night's not going to affect me in death. It's not going to affect anybody else except for the firstborn. So
right, but as you pointed out, this type is similar to the free will offering and the Thanksgiving offering, neither of which deal with sin.
And all I'm trying to do is make a correlation. So maybe this is an offering for protection, but it's only protection for the firstborn. So why not just have an exception to where, let's just get all the firstborns together? Because after all, this night's not going to affect anybody else except for the firstborns. How come the instruction isn't that way? Why isn't the instruction for the firstborn? All we do have is the firstborn lamb or the firstborn goat is going to be used in this meal.
Okay.
So all I'm trying to do is bring a correlation to the sacrificial system that, maybe we could justify it that way, saying it's a sacrifice because it is for the firstborn, or instead of me, the firstborn, we're going to use this lamb. Because that's really the heart of the sacrificial system is, I deserve death, but instead of me, this animal which can't sin is going to suffer the death for me.
Right.
There's a correlation. Okay, this could be a sacrifice, but like I said, then you got to ask so many other questions. Well, then why doesn't it come out and say that? No, this is a family affair.
Okay.
The family needs to do this. The instructions are given to the family, and if your family is too poor or can't afford it, then you join with another family. This is for the entire family. And as we continue on with the rest of the Torah portion, the instruction from here on out is, you will teach your sons what happened to you this night. And there we have a play on the plurality of words in Hebrew, which is interesting in itself. You singular, and then you or your sons is plural. I shouldn't say or your sons. You singular, you will teach your sons. You is singular, your is plural. And it's not referring to your sons, it's referring to all of you. You and everything that will come from you will do this until the end of time. You will continue to do this. So this first night marks a change in the dynamics of world history. And I have to be singular in attachment to this night. And the instruction is for the entire family. And as I continue my life, I will continue this memorial for the entire family as instructed to the firstborn and for the case of the firstborn. And I'm getting pop-ups here. I'm not sure what that is.
I'm sending you a message. I wanted to know if, you don't have to answer. Just type yes or no. So,
no, I haven't been looking at the chat, okay. So I'll go back there in just a second. So that's just a correlation, but there's other things that we've got to come out with. Well, if it is a sacrifice, then why this way? Because it's not a sacrifice for the entire family, is it? Well, yes, it is. But only the firstborn gets anything out of this, and that is the firstborn gets to live. Well, right. Yes. And then, we continue on with this whole line of reasoning as we go through this first night. And so to find correlations, yes, blood is applied to something. Does that mean? So if I apply the blood to the lintel and the doorposts, and by the way, I remember back in the Christian church, in order to do this, you make the sign of the cross and you apply a blot on the top, and then you go across and do it to the two lintels. But within Judaism, it is the lintel, and so you swipe across the lintel on the top, not just dab it on one part of the lintel. You wipe it across the top of the lintel, and then down the doorpost, and then you come over to the other doorpost, and you go down that doorpost, and it forms the letter He. For life, that's interesting. It'll preach. I'm not sure exactly how it was done, but that'll preach.
Right, and that and the fact that you're using hyssop. Okay, blood, hyssop, and wood together. It's kind of like the cleansing, the two birds.
Yeah.
Another connection, but I don't want to get us sidetracked, so keep going.
All right, so that could be the application of the blood to the horns of the altar. Does that make the entire house now an altar? After all, the sacrifice cannot leave the house.
Right.
Once you've brought it in, it cannot leave.
Right.
Once the sacrifice is laid on the altar, it cannot leave. And it must be eaten in a clean place. Another correlation is no sacrifice is allowed with chametz. No leaven is ever offered on the altar. Can't do leaven on the altar. Now, there's a slight variation to that, but for the most part, 99.9% of the time, no leaven on the altar. No leaven can be offered in with a sacrifice.
Right.
Oh, and so what do we have? Before we can even start this night of Pesach, I've got to cleanse my house of leaven. No leaven is allowed on the altar. Oh, so maybe my house is the altar.
So what makes this night different from all the other nights?
Exactly. So as we go on, you guys said there was a question, Jesse, or someone?
Just read your IM or your message on Skype. It's typed in.
Okay, renewal of us, a change, a chance for us to know God. Absolutely. As the Most High told Moses to tell Pharaoh to let his people go so that they could serve him. For having those who eat of the lamb, were they not consuming Adonai in a way? I'm sorry, there's just the connotations of that. I have a knee-jerk reaction. So my knee-jerk reaction is no, absolutely not, no way, no how is God an animal, nor can be considered as an animal or compared to an animal in any way, even symbolically.
Correct.
So I would just have to say no. It does not fit a Torah mindset. Don't take it wrong. Don't take it bad. It's No, we're not consuming Adonai.
Nowhere in Judaism do we accept a human sacrifice.
And like the manna that will fall for them in their Exodus, and which is compared to the bread of heaven, but is not compared to being God himself. So again, I've got to be very, very cautious. That's a very Greek thinking way, a very Roman thinking way, and the Greeks and the Romans gave us Christianity with that mindset of body of Christ, blood of Christ, abominus nabisco, shredded wheat, and the whole Catholic way of approaching that.
Right, and that all started with the Nicene Council 325. It also has to do with Constantine and his mommy. And for people who ask stuff like this, I have to ask how, and I'm trying to be respectful here, but I'll make it real quick. How in the world did we go from a first century group as a sect of Judaism to an anti-Semitic church? Because exactly what happened.
Yeah, and the person that was asking was, I guess, I'm assuming was raised Roman Catholic, so I can understand.
And we're not attacking him or her. I don't know.
Yeah, because it does come Christianity, and specifically Roman Catholicism, which is what Christianity came from.
Right.
I mean, the Church of Rome truly is the mother of every other church since then, because what we have, the teachings, the Bible itself, the New Testament, all came from Roman Catholicism.
Right, the canonized version.
Yeah, Protestantism rejected some books out of the New Testament and the Apocrypha, but for the most part, anyways, we're going way off. Now, the idea of the inspecting of the lamb and how that is done and bringing that into the house, there's some interesting stories. It deals with us having to inspect our lives, finding fault in others, and finding faults in ourselves. After all, I can find a fault in Frank, or Frank can find a fault in me, but the difference between finding a fault for a sacrifice is this sacrifice has to take my part in death. Frank is not going to die because I find fault in him or don't find fault in him. In other words, Frank's not the sacrifice. This animal is. And so as I'm inspecting the animal for perfection, I am realizing and recognizing the imperfections in my life, and in a way as is a reason as to why I am not acceptable.
So are you saying first take the mote out of your eye and you'll be able to see, and take the speck out of your brother's eye?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. And then, bringing the animal in, and it's becoming part of you, and now the animal will die. So it is becomes a part of the family, and part of the family dies. And it's that aspect, not so much the aspect that God has died and now we get to eat him.
Right.
With Holy Communion and that type of thing. That is absolutely not what's going on here with this first Passover.
Right.
We can talk about it as we go through the Torah portions in the future and come back to this idea and do some more comparing and contrasting. But with this night, the issue that I'm getting to is the home itself has become a place of worship. The home itself has become sanctified, and it is because the home has become sanctified as an altar. Therefore, God jumps over it. Judgment will not come upon this house, this household, and all that's in it. Judgment is passed over. And it wasn't an angel of death that went through Egypt. It was God himself.
Exactly.
God didn't give this to anybody else to do. God himself did this. And it was the firstborn of everything. Every cricket, every louse, every mouse, every horse, every animal, everything that was born died. The firstborn died that night. Everything, which is amazing. It's insurmountable, and it's by that Egypt is crushed. So with this, since the house itself becomes the altar, and the blood of the animal is applied, and the animal is roasted in a clean place. There is no leaven in the house. The house has been wiped clean. The animal has been inspected. The house has been inspected. My sons, my daughters, even the animals in the house, they've all been inspected. We have now set ourselves aside for a holy act, and that's what sanctification means. Sanctification.
Wait a second. You mean I have to be set apart?
That's it. Sanctification means being set apart for a holy act. So if I raise up a coin out of my pocket and I say, I'm going to give this in the offering plate, I'm giving this coin to God, I cannot use that coin for anything else. Absolutely not. I have set it aside. I have sanctified it. And in fact, it is a sin if I use it for anything else.
Correct.
Now, the payment for that sin is I have to well, I won't go back. I won't get into that, but
Right.
You have to compensate that loss because you just set this aside by your words and your action. You have sanctified this as holy. Now it must be treated holy until that vow has been paid, that debt has been paid. So
Let
now
your yes be yes and your no be no.
So we have set aside this family, this night, as being holy unto God. And as God goes through the land exacting judgment, it's as if this house doesn't even exist. The term Pesach, in Hebrew, it's hard to view it as Passover, even though that's an acceptable term or acceptable translation as Passover. It's hard to view it as that because Pesach simply means I passed by it as though it doesn't exist. That's what Pesach really means. You do not exist for judgment, is what Pesach is representing on this first night, and specifically is you're not here for judgment. You don't exist for judgment. So judgment has passed by you. It didn't just leap and skip over homes. It didn't go searching through and just, a hop, skip, and a jump over the next home. No. As judgment goes through the land, you don't exist.
Yeah, there's something irreverent about thinking God was doing a hop, skip, and a jump over. It's just, yeah, I'm not going to go there. But
I know, but sometimes we get caught up in that because we use the term so loosely sometimes.
True,
and it's understandable. It's completely understandable. But we also have in Chronicles and in Jeremiah and one other place, I think it was Joshua, and memory's failing me. I need to go back and look it up. I'm not as good as some of those the sages and good preachers. I just can't ramble scriptures off my head.
Oh, you mean the old dead guys?
Yeah, there's no less than 3 places where a guilty person clung to the horns of the altar.
Right.
And with the exception of premeditated murder. Premeditated murder is the only one where you can take someone even from the horns of the altar, judge them, and send them to death. But
now,
in
that's an
all other
interesting
cases,
thing.
someone can cling to the horns of the altar. And in that act, what they're doing is they are appealing to heaven. And this is how it's written in Talmud and in the Torah itself is, as soon as I cling to the horns of the altar, as soon as I recognize and set my house aside and I've applied the blood and I've eaten of the Passover lamb or goat, then I am clinging to the horns of the altar and cannot be judged by anybody but God. I'm appealing to heaven. And at that point in time, things change because the altar itself is holy. And my reaching out to that altar, now I have to be considered as holy. And it's a fun and exciting way of looking at the Hebrew and at Judaism.
Now, you said anything but premeditated murder. Now, that I've looked at. And what that means is if you lie in wait for someone to kill them, to do them harm, that is premeditation. Now, it is a wonder that Yeshua said, if you look at a woman and lust after her, you have sinned because you have premeditated it. You have thought about doing wrong.
I hope that's what he meant. I really do.
I do too, but
I mean, that's almost drastic. I mean, who cannot have a wrong thought at any point in time in their life? That means that I'm sorry. I'm going off a different aspect of.
I know, but I
I
wanted to
think
say
that's
that.
what he meant. I think
Right.
he meant premeditation. You've dwelled upon this, not that an errant thought entered your head,
Right.
because errant thoughts enter your head. It's your action on that thought is what God judges.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. And it's a premeditation where you lie in wait. That's the actual physical
there you go. There you go.
aspect of you doing something. You're lying in wait for somebody to murder them, to rob them, to kill them. That's an action, as you said. It is not just a random thought. I mean, we're bombarded with this stuff on television. We're bombarded with it out in public. We go, oh, okay, I didn't know I was supposed to see that today, but okay, And then we go on. We try to modify our thoughts and go, okay, I'm going to think about something else. I mean, and it's not just promiscuousness that we see, but it's also we also see murder in the public. We also see theft and looting and destruction of property, and we see all those things in the public, and we're going, what is with you people? You're destroying your own neighborhood. What in the world are you doing? So anyway, I just wanted to get that straight, that premeditated murder is laying in wait for someone. So sorry, I didn't mean to derail us. We have time, or do we want to get to Jesse's topic, or do you have more? Chris?
Yeah, go where we're going, whatever.
Okay. Because I think Jesse's topic fits in here. Jesse?
Oh, the whole aspect that we have survivor's guilt going on. Forgive me for being blunt about that one.
Yes, that's exactly right.
All right. So the one thing, and this is why I truly believe not everyone fully takes the full grasp behind the whole understanding of every firstborn of everything died, is what we were speaking about earlier, and this is where we lead right into, is Egypt, like many other countries that led under the rulership of a king of any kind, would always follow the usual pattern. First son is heir. Second son is spare. And
Wow. Okay.
That makes him sound like an inner tube or something.
But notice that all the great prophets and kings were never firstborn.
No, they weren't. No, I actually got that reference from taking college, so we can blame it on college for that one.
It's a good joke.
You have the heir, you have the spare, and then if you have any more, they go to the cloister.
Oh, jeez.
That was the understanding behind it, at least during the medieval ages. Anyways, so that poses the question: do people believe that this current pharaoh is the heir or the spare? Forgive me for using the phrase more often, but it fits.
Yeah, and that is something that's discussed and argued. It's not as prominent as everything else that's going on here, but that is an obvious question. If all the 10 plagues, if this whole scene is set up and driving us towards this night, and that's really how last week's Torah portion, well, actually 2 weeks ago, last week, and this week, and it'll be recapitulated again later on in Tanakh, is that everything that happened from the burning bush until this night was for the purpose of this night. Why is God hardening Pharaoh's heart if he is actually purposely doing this? Why the plagues in this order? Why? It's all those things were for the purpose of this night, because Pharaoh said, I am a god. I stand in my river that gives me life. I am a god. And all the land, including Bnei Israel, are here for my pleasure. But where does Pharaoh get his right to be God? because he was the firstborn. And that's exactly what he's calling upon. His right by divine decree, because he was born first, not because he chose to be born first, but because he was, by divine decree, he was born first. Therefore, he ascends the throne to be the King of Kings, Lord of Lords, as he stands in his river that gives life to all things. Things live and things die at his decree. And God is saying, no, Israel is my firstborn. Israel is mine. And Pharaoh said, I don't even know who you are. And God says, well, let me introduce myself.
Sorry, I think that's a great
That is a good way of putting it.
And so we go through 3 sets of 3 plagues, each representing every one of the gods of Egypt, and they're all destroyed. And remember Moses' little argument, and we see all along Pharaoh, Moses' first set of three plagues. Moses goes before Pharaoh, and Pharaoh says, I don't even know this God. No. And then Moses comes back again and says, Moses, you're causing extra work on these people. Do you really want to do this? You know, it's the Guido Sarducci thing, or Guido, I don't know. It's the Godfather.
That's his name, Guido Sarducci. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the Godfather saying, yeah, you do this, you're going to cause work for these people. It's not going to be me. You're going to cause extra work because I'm going to have to punish them.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's that whole...
Let me make you an offer you can't refuse.
Yeah, and it's almost a... Moses, you're so beneath me. You're just lucky I gave you time to even come before me. And then finally it's... okay, Moses, you know, I've sinned, so you go, I've sinned against you and I've sinned against God. And that's an interesting topic there. I've sinned against you and I've sinned against God. So please go pray for me on my account that God will forgive me and erase this plague. And Moses does that.
The question from Mark last week, which I said was not Torah because it wasn't the same phraseology, but okay.
Beep, beep, beep.
Yeah.
Getting off, going off topic.
I know.
So we come to that point, and after that plague, suddenly there is heated animosity. The way the Torah is cantillated, everything that is recorded of us, of what Pharaoh says, now Pharaoh is mad. He's angry, and it's that anger. They say that when the frogs came up, that it was to build up this anger within us so that we'd recognize this anger. And what was said is that the frogs were everywhere, and out of anger, you would kick a frog, and as soon as you kicked a frog, 2 more would show up. And you would stomp on one, 2 more would show up. Every time you tried to kill one out of your anger, then more would show up. And it's that aspect that the sages teach us. It's like when we get so mad that we punch the wall. Great. I got mad because my car wouldn't start, and so I punched the wall. Now my car won't start, and I got a hole in the wall, and my hand hurts. I compounded my own anger by acting out in anger, and it goes on.
I thought you were trying to tell me that the frogs were like hydras. When you killed one, 2 more show up.
No, it's just the teaching behind the plagues
okay.
is all it is, and it's going through emotional states of not only Israel but of Egypt and specifically Pharaoh. And now we come to the head of it all, and Pharaoh's heart is changing. The word that is used for the hardening of his heart has changed now. He's become emboldened upon himself. He's that anger that keeps on building and building, that everything just turns and boils it up even more. It's that anger that just keeps on twisting inside of me, that now the TV doesn't work right, or the washing machine, or the kids are saying something, or my husband said something, and the anger just keeps boiling. That's Pharaoh at this point in time. And God is saying, wait a minute, I thought you were a God. God is saying, I don't act out of emotion.
Right. Is this the comparison to a person? Sorry. The comparison to a person and how they lose control of their life. Yes. And when they start losing control of their life, they just get angrier and angrier and angrier.
Yes.
Because they're not willing to stop and look at the situation.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
That's it perfectly. You said it perfectly, Frank. And that's the state that Pharaoh is in on these last 3 plagues. And that's why they're broken up in this Torah portion in a different manner than what they were before. And we see Pharaoh acting out more and more out of anger until the very last time when Pharaoh says, I don't ever want to see your face again, Moses. If I see you again, you will die. And Moses says, you said correctly. You will never see my face again. And then we go into the Mechat Bekorot, the death of the firstborn. Right. And that is the purpose of everything up until now is God said, no, these are my people. You will let them go. Pharaoh says, no, I am a God.
Yeah. And I want
to be God because I'm firstborn. Okay.
Well,
but we also know that throughout history, the firstborn was set up to be the priest in the house. And that priest served not just to kill animals and present sacrifices. No, the priest had a responsibility. And it's based on the godly responsibility of that priest that sets him aside, not just because he was firstborn, but it was honored that the firstborn of the womb is separated and sanctified to God. And we have that very instruction in this Torah portion as well. God comes to Moses and says, Moses, the firstborn that opens every womb is mine. So now you will sanctify, you will instruct Israel, you will sanctify the firstborn of the firstborn that opens the womb will be sanctified and set apart to me, or it must be redeemed. And so we redeem our firstborn with silver, but the firstborn is still considered something different and something separate, because after all, he's the one we learn to be parents by. You know, the firstborn is the one that we make all the mistakes on.
Man, now I understand my life. Oh, no.
Oh no. Oh, no. Don't tell me we're going to get started on that discussion.
No. I wanted to say something.
So I blame my father for my mistakes, just as he blames his father and his father before him and his father before him. Is that what we're saying here?
Well, yeah, in a roundabout way. Actually, no, it's a direct way. We're actually saying that. I wanted to say a real quick thing. The only reason we have kings and queens is because their ancestors were more brutal and violent and conquered a people or conquered a region and set themselves up as a leader. And then comes in, well, because God said, because God made me this, because God made me victorious, I am your king.
Absolutely. But we do find something about Passover holistically as a nation. I mean, this first night is for the nation, the entire nation, but it's for the entire nation as it's acted upon by the individual families. And we see immediately when we come into the land, Moshe and Aaron and Miriam have gone on, and we have Joshua bringing us into the land. And in Joshua chapter 5, and I really encourage everybody to read Joshua, especially if you want to argue over what day to do Passover, etc. And we're going back and forth over that as we approach Passover in a few months. Please read and study Joshua to understand why Judaism keeps Passover when and the way they do, is because Joshua gives us the first time it was done in the land. But we see that Israel observes Passover immediately upon their arrival in the land, and it's the entire nation comes together and observes Passover, and it's done in a slightly different way. It's not quite the way it was commanded, but we don't have all the nuances and intricacies that's written out for us in Joshua. But when we go to 2 Chronicles, we see that Hezekiah initiates a major Passover celebration in Jerusalem. And here we have much more going on. And it's a renewing, or it's kind of like renewing your marriage vows. It's like coming back and admitting renewing the covenant. And it's actually presented in that way. It says, now I wish to make a covenant with Hashem, God of Israel. And it goes on to this great extensive Passover service that comes about. That's in 2 Chronicles chapter 30. And then in 35, his son is going to do the same thing after the nation sins. They're going to rededicate themselves, and they discover the Torah scroll in the temple that they had forgotten. How did you forget this? And so as a renewal of this covenant, even while in the land, the decree goes out for the entire nation to do Passover. And when we get to Ezekiel, we're going to find that Passover done then is going to be an extremely strange and awe-inspiring way. We see it done in Solomon's temple. The point of all this, Passover was the purpose of the plagues. Passover was the purpose of meeting Moses at the burning bush. Why? Because it is the birth of the nation and the covenant fulfillment that was promised to Abraham. Abraham had the covenant. As we talked about it earlier, he didn't get to see the fulfillment of this covenant. You want the fulfillment of the covenant? Here's how it's done. It's done with Passover, and now we're coming to the marriage feast. Now we're getting ready, and we're going to go together to the mountain. We're going to read the ketubah, and we're going to go into the marriage feast. This is what sets you and I aside to be holy unto God. This is what sanctifies us, is going through this. It will continue to happen over and over in all of Israel as a national emblem, a national renewing of the marriage vows. It's Passover. And to me, that is what's fascinating about this. So as we quibble and we bicker over matzah, does it have to be this, or does it have to be baked at 18 minutes? And is it on the night of the 14th or the night of the 15th? And what's the Erev? And we bicker and we argue back and forth. And some people even today will make sure they dress in robes and sandals and have their staff, or they've got all kinds of different traditions. Let's not forget the purpose of the Passover. Is we are entering into a covenant. We have set ourselves aside, and it's not an individual thing, it's a family thing. Why is it a family thing? Because it was 12 sons that were set aside to be the birth of a new nation. And it was from this night that nation was birthed. So family, yes, but the greater whole is all of Israel, because we have become B'nai Israel, sons of Israel, sons of Jacob, sons of Abraham.
So can I offer this one thought that
No.
Okay. All right.
I've always wanted to say that.
You've said that before. I'll have you know.
You asked the question. Okay. No. What's your thought? What's your 2 cents? What's your half opinion?
No, if I give you 2 cents, I'm actually going to give you 4 pence. But no, my supposition here is that the Pesach, the first one, was actually a blessing, not just to B'nai Israel, but it was a blessing to all the individual families, because they did not lose their firstborn, their quote-unquote leader of the house, their priest, their prince. So in effect, it's a blessing not to have to go through using the spare instead of having the heir. Right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. That's my 4 cents. Yeah. So, can I ask a question? No. So, okay. And you have said that before, but I set you up for it anyway. So,
Jesse, did you have anything to add? Because I want to come back, because I did pose a question. What was that one plague that we can say unequivocally did happen to Israel and Goshen?
Oh, that one plague. Now you've got me trying to remember.
I'm not asking what that one plague was. I'm just saying, before I present that, did you have anything else you wanted to add to this discussion or bring up?
Outside of the emphasis behind the fact of, because we quite literally derailed from my original topic briefly, to some degree, the whole mindset of how some people believe that this was a matter of God saying, yeah, I did this, and I did it so that you could see that I did it. On the whole matter of keeping Pharaoh alive. But outside of that, there wasn't really anything that I could think of at the moment.
Yeah, yeah. And you're right. I mean, we didn't really close that all too well. We built it up, but by keeping Pharaoh alive, let's presume Pharaoh was a firstborn. By keeping him alive and seeing that his firstborn son died, now he has no heir. And that from the greatest to the least, all firstborn died. All know that Pharaoh's a firstborn. All know that Israel was preserved and did not suffer the death of the firstborn, but everybody else did except for Pharaoh. What's going on here, Joe?
Yeah.
Yo, Joe, what's
How
up?
come
How come
you're
everybody
spared?
else
What's up
suffers
with
except
that,
for
man?
except for the Jews and you? What's going on? What's worse is Pharaoh has to acknowledge and admit, oh my God, this was a sign for me.
Yeah. The
I
last god of Egypt is destroyed.
had to live through this knowing that my death is still coming. And based on that thought process of an interaction, and it's not recorded for us, this interaction is not recorded for us in the Torah, but the interaction between God and Pharaoh sans Moses. In other words, without Moses, there's an interaction between Pharaoh and God. And God is showing and telling him, see, you were not saved from the death of the firstborn. You lived through it because you will go down into Sheol alive as the marker for all kings to come, as the example, as the thing not to do for every king that will ever rise up in all of humanity from here on forward. You will be the example of what not to do. Do not harden your heart against God. You must be humble and pliable. And in fact, I am going to make the kings of Israel write this Torah down throughout the whole time that they are king, just so they will always remember God is God. No man can be a God.
Correct. So you wanted to go back to that plague? Can I take a guess?
Yeah, so we have that. At least with 3 of the plagues, we're told specifically that Goshen was the borderline, and the plague didn't cross into Goshen, and Goshen was saved from it. We have the darkness. Let me find it. And so the Lord said, Moses, stretch forth your hand towards the heavens, and there will be darkness over the land of Egypt. And this is interesting because it says over the land of Egypt, and darkness will be, and in darkness it will become darker. And it's a weird way of writing it in Hebrew. It's even harder to translate. It's like within the darkness, the darkness itself will shine through. It's a weird thing. It's like the darker it gets, the darker it will become, type of thing.
Right.
The darkness will compound itself upon you. So Moses stretched forth his hand toward the heavens, and this I'm reading in verse 21, now 22. So Moses stretched forth his hand toward the heavens, and there was a thick darkness over the entire land of Egypt. Oh, Kol Mitzrayim. So now here we have the entire land of Egypt. Where is Goshen? It's in Egypt. So Goshen must be affected, right? For 3 days. No. But the next verse, verse 23, they did not see each other, and no one rose from his place for 3 days, except for all the children of Egypt, for there was light in their dwellings.
All the children of Goshen?
I mean, to children of Israel. But for the children of Israel, for there was a light in their dwellings. So that's interesting. There's a great teaching on that. So we have multiple places here where Goshen was separated from the plagues. But here's one. The locusts ascended over the entire land, Kol, Eretz, Mitzrayim, the entire land of Egypt, and they alighted within all the borders. If that wasn't good enough for you, then we're going to say all the borders of Egypt. This does include Goshen. Very severe. Before them, there was never such locust plague after it, nor will there ever be another one like it. They obscured the view of all the earth. The earth became darkened, and they ate all the vegetation of the land, Eretz, and all the fruits of the trees. All. It's Kol again. So here we have that Goshen was not excluded from this one. And so the rabbis ask, oh, but why? Why were we excluded from all the others, but not from this one? Why would we have to suffer this one? And the answer is given. Because I said, says God, I said I will leave Egypt desolate. Israel is about to leave. They have their stores in hand. They don't need anything left that's outside. So everything else is going to be stripped so that Egypt cannot even enrich itself over the land of Goshen, of where I kept my people.
Okay, so that's what I was going to ask you. Because if the locusts truly ate everything up, then what about the stuff that the children of Israel are supposed to take with them on the journey? So you said the rabbis are saying they already had their stores. In other words, everything was already sealed up.
Yes.
And they were ready to go.
That's the thought, and that's the explanation. Okay. Because again, the rabbis are great. They dig into the nuances and the detail of this, and they're I mean, it's one of those things, tongue in cheek. Why Jews make great lawyers is because they really get into the meanings of these words, and that's what they're trying to do. Right. Judaism does not view that Moshe just put words down on a piece of paper. No, he specifically chose certain words for a reason, because words mean things, because this is going to be down for all eternity. This is God's Torah.
I've heard somebody say that before. Words mean things.
I know. And so that's the one. And I find it fascinating. And the answer is because if Goshen had been left untouched by this plague, then Egypt would have had something to survive on. True. But God had decreed that they would be laid waste.
Right. There is there is a division in the first portion. That's 2 weeks ago, where God made a division between Goshen and the land of Egypt. Okay, yep. So that only the Egyptians in that part would be affected by the plagues. So I was going to say the water turning into blood, which was affected in Goshen, or Goshen was affected, and then it's like the first 2 or first 3 plagues, Goshen also felt. But after that, God made the division, and then only the Egyptians felt that. Now, when you said it was dark and it was made darker, I have this nagging supposition, because when it says that there were in the household of Israel, there was light. That word is illumination, which is Zohar. So I think, I have a supposition, I can't prove it, that somehow God removed the illumination from people in Egypt. You can say he just made a cloud of darkness, but if you remove the ability to think, or if you suppress it, nobody can move from their place. And if you have just the smallest amount of wisdom and or intelligence, and you feel this, it's a complete oppression to your system. I can't move. I can't think. I can't see.
And that's where you're right, because that's where the rabbis do say is this darkness was not just a physical darkness, it was a spiritual darkness, and it became a psychological depression, right, to where wherever you were when the darkness came, you just sat down and you didn't move, you didn't eat, you didn't drink. It was a deep spiritual, psychological, and physical thing. It touched you in all 3 places of your life.
Well, Frank's ego is going to say, hooray, the rabbis agree with me, instead of me just agreeing with the rabbis.
Well, they did look up your writings, and they studied those too. So.
Yeah, right. They looked up my writings. Come on, Chris. I'm being a wiseacre.
So that's all I got.
That's all, folks.
Yeah, and actually, no, that's not all, because I could talk for weeks on just this portion alone.
Yeah, but we only have certain time.
It's so much fun. I encourage everyone to try to get a good lexicon or a Hebrew dictionary and
etymological dictionary.
And look at some of these words as you go through the Torah portions, and even if you have Strong's, though Strong's is not a dictionary, please don't use Strong's Concordance as a dictionary, but at least you can look up to where these words are used in other places. get a dictionary, get a lexicon, get something that will help you with the Hebrew so that you can
Right.
look up these words and then ask the question, okay, why use this word here, but over here you chose a different word which has a different connotation to it?
Or
Is
like
it
us,
just,
rely on Jesse.
yeah, is it just style, or is there a specific reason here?
Yeah.
Hence the hardening of Pharaoh's heart. 3 different words are used. One, it says his heart was hardened, but it actually means he was encouraged. Another one, his heart was hardened, and it's the hazak, and we say that at the end of finishing a book. Hazak, 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 and it's that word that is used there. He became strengthened. He strengthened himself, because hazak, Vinay hazak, is you become strengthened. You build upon your own strength, and that's what that is. And it's fun whenever you look at some of these words and realize, wow, there's more going on here than just what I'm reading in the English or good old King Jimmy.
Right. So like I said, we'll allow you to rent Jesse out to help you with Hebrew. That'll be $3.95 an hour. That's $395 an hour, and Jesse only gets a portion of that. That's like 5%. Chris and
really only a measly 5%.
I figured I'd find some way to get you to speak up. Come on now. And Chris and I split the rest, so you know.
We'll do something closer to 50-50 if we're going to play that way, and you guys can split your half of the 50.
Now, Chris, see how he is? I mean, come on. See how he is? Oh, jeez. But anyway.
All right. Yeah, we're getting late.
Yep.
Don't forget, we do have a webpage now, and as soon as I get the recordings from Mark, we're going to start loading those up there so you can go back if you've missed it, any show or didn't capture the whole show. I'm going to start loading those up on the webpage.
Right. And you can always point out our missteps.
Yes, absolutely. We've got a place for you to send us emails with questions, thoughts, and tell us how much of a heretic we are and how out of line with your theology we are, which that's cool with us because it's 2.5 opinions, and we're open to your opinion as well.
Yes, we are. Yes, Jesse.
We always are.
Okay. So this is 2.5 opinions. If you haven't figured it out by now, you're a little slow on the uptake. That's not a slight. I'm just saying, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I'm Frank.
I'm Yishai.
I'm not the Rebbe.
Yeah. Okay, sure. No. Anyway, this is 2.5 opinions. We thank you for tuning in. We thank you for showing up in the chat room. And as Chris has said, as soon as we get the other recordings, the archives, you'll be able to listen to us to your heart's content. And hopefully, hopefully we have something that we can share with you that we can, share together to study Torah.
Yeah, and I just started working on this. Hopefully I'll be able to get this finished and posted up this week on our website too. What is it? TWONA halfopinions.com.
Yes, it's all spelled out. There's no numbers. Yeah,
I'm going to post this up there, and it's a recommended reading list. It's one that I've compiled from other teachers, and it's kind of like the if you had no other book, get one of these books to help you learn Torah from. Really, it's more from a Jewish perspective. It's not an anti-Christian, not an anti-Messianic, not a anti-Jesus thing. It's just understanding from the side of those that have preserved the law and the prophets, as Paul tells us in Romans,
right.
From those that have preserved, from those to whom the covenants were promised, from those to whom kept the law and the oracles and the prophets were given.
To those who
that
the
perspective
oracles were entrusted to, right.
Yeah, correct.
So anyway, that's us, and like us, hate us, don't care, whatever, just come back and listen to us again, because that's how we roll. Oh, come on, that was an open one. That's how we roll.
We always roll.
But
But what? What's the but
Chris?
about?
Chris, don't roll on
I
Shabbos.
said Shomer Shabbos. Shomer Shabbos. I don't roll on Shabbos.
Shomer Shabbos. Okay, I see what kind of rolling you're referring to.
That's what I'm getting at.
Egg rolls.
Say goodnight, Frank.
Good night, Frank.
We'll see y'all.
Right.
Farewell.
Good night, everybody.
Auf Wiedersehen. No.
Yeah. Shavua Tov, Laila Tov. Take care. Okay. I guess we're going to close the room, so. Okay. Remember, the short, disclaimer here is, if your speakers break or your computer breaks because I sing, I am in no way liable for any damages caused by that or any cameras that take my picture, okay? So, let me see if I can remember the song. Let me see. Do I remember the words? Okay. Mizmor shir leyom hashabos. Mizmor shir leyom hashabos. Mizmor shir leyom hashabos. Mizmor shir leyom hashabos. The whole world is waiting to sing the song of Shabbos. The whole world is waiting to sing the song of Shabbos. And I am also waiting to sing the song of Shabbos. I am also waiting to sing the song of Shabbos. The flowers and the trees sing the song of Shabbos. The valleys and the mountains sing the song of Shabbos. The stars in the skies sing the song of Shabbos. The angels in heaven sing the song of Shabbos. The whole world is waiting to sing the song of Shabbos. The whole world is waiting to sing the song of Shabbos. And I am also waiting to sing the song of Shabbos. I am also waiting to sing the song of Shabbos. I saw 6 million dying. They sang the song of Shabbos. I hear 3 million crying to sing the song of Shabbos. Stop all the hatred, sing the song of Shabbos. Love one another, sing the song of Shabbos. Dance on the street, sing the song of Shabbos. Dance on the street, sing the song of Shabbos. The whole world is waiting to sing the song of Shabbos. The whole world is waiting to sing the song of Shabbos. And I am also waiting to sing the song of Shabbos. Mizmor shir leyom hashabos. There. Are you happy now, Charlotte? Do it again. Come on, will you?
Thank you for your generous donations to Messianic Lamb Radio. You will be blessed as promised in Proverbs 22:9. These donations enable listeners from around the world to hear words of hope in teachings and in songs. Todah Rabbah. Thank you for your generous donations to Messianic Lamb Radio. You will be blessed as promised in Proverbs 22:9. These donations enable listeners from around the world to hear words of hope in teachings and in songs. Todah Rabbah.
Shalom. I would like to draw your attention to the element of excitement and passion that is within Messianic Lamb Radio these days. What is all this excitement and passion about? Well, let's take a page from President Kennedy's famous speech, but using a spiritual twist. Ask not what God can do for you. Ask what you can do for your God. I'm Susan Hoogie of Messianic Morning Prayers. Thank you for choosing Messianic Lamb Radio, the radio station of praise and passion for our God and our Messiah.
Después de 500 años